Assignment 1. Ethical and legal issues. Ethical. The definition of ethical is the moral principles that governs a person's behaviour or the conducting of an activity. An example of this would be playing by the rules in football, such as not handballing it. Legal. The definition of legal is working within the boundaries of civil law. An example of this would be in hockey. You're not allowed to raise the stick above knee height in case it... The 4 C's. Competence. The state or quality of being adequate or well qualified. A sporting example of this would be taking blood lactate samples. The athlete has to be lactate sample, as this would be unethical towards the athlete. If they do not know how to or did not want to do the test and they are forced to, this would be unethical. Consent refers to the provisions of approval, particularly and especially after thoughtful considerations. An example of this would be getting the child's parents to sign a consent form before taking part of fitness tests at school if they are under the age of 18 years old. Confidentiality is a set of rules or a promise that limits access or places restrictions on certain types of information. This is under the Data Protection Act. An example of this is performing fitness tests, and then after the fitness tests, the results, the athletes would have to sign a consent form to allow the trainer to publish their results for other people to access. Conduct. An agreement on rules of behaviour for a group or organisation. An example of conduct is a teacher making derogatory comments to participants in their lesson. This can often offend athletes during the activities they are taking part in. A scenario for not working ethically and legally is after the class has performed BMI research and they had to weigh each other and measure each other's height in class. Then the trainer publishes all of the class's results without asking for permission or consent. This isn't working ethically or legally, and it also is against the Data Protection Act. This means the trainer could lose their BASIS accreditation. Also, another scenario for not working ethically and legally is during practice, if a basketball player keeps on missing free throws time and time again, and the trainer makes the player run around the court for the rest of the session and the player isn't allowed to join back in, this is punishment for not succeeding. Doing this is not working ethically or legally. The implication for the trainer doing this means he could be fined and cause physical and emotional harm to the player who had to run around the court. In addition to this, another scenario is an investigation of the role of cold vests in aiding recovery from maximal sprint intervals. This research is working ethically and legally within the code of conduct. This is because the athlete isn't using drugs such as steroids to gain an advantage on their opponents. Also, athletes use ice baths after events to reduce lactic acid and DOMS building up in their muscles. So this is just a different type of aid in recovery. However, it is better to perform this research on adults instead of children because they are more likely to be performing at maximal level. They have to have consent from athletes or consent from parents if the athlete is under 18. Otherwise, some serious implications could be taken, such as being taken to court. This would benefit athletes by using this aid in recovery with maximal sprint intervals because the lactic acid system produces high amounts of lactic acid, and this would help reduce the amount of lactic acid in the muscles. So this would help the recovery during these short interval periods. Another scenario would be the coach has a very strong bond with all of his football team, but one of the players has an extra strong relationship with the coach. This causes the coach to favour the player during practices, which is called favouritism, such as when the whole team does cardiovascular stamina and they're running for a long time and the player opts out, the coach will allow him to, but when another teammate wants to stop, he won't allow him to. This isn't working ethically and can disrupt team dynamics. Also, in addition to this, a weightlifter's coach has analysed his athlete's recent results in competition and has noticed his weights have dropped and decides to put him on performance enhancing drugs, which is against the law, and the impacts of this can be a strong ban from competing and could lead to a prison sentence and a fine. All of this work in my assignment is mine.